Trump's like taking over your
Having a
city.
temper tantrum.
Yeah, exactly that. Like he's literally having a temper tantrum, and you know what you do when kids have temper tantrums? You don't give them attention, and then
It's
eventually
true.
they stop and move on to, God forbid, move on to a different city. Like
I feel like we only have been saying them all, like over and over
where
again.
else? Where else are they?
I
I've.
I don't know. I don't know at all. What if we all? Oh my God! I
What?
said the message here. What if we all just ignored Donald Trump? Maybe more people in our generation who are like very resistant to the idea of marriage will like take a second look at it and be like, hmm. Hello everyone, it is episode 23 of Washed Up. We're back after a little bit of a hiatus. Certainly a lot has happened since our last episode. I'm Colin, this is Abby. We're in Washington, D.C. We're bringing you the latest news so that you don't have to listen to the legacy media that your grandparents do.
We took a little break and it felt just like how we would do it with the Vista, except not a whole summer has passed by, just
It feels like
two
a
and a
whole
half,
summer though.
exactly that. Like 2 weeks has passed by, maybe two and a half since like we physically recorded with one another. Colin posted his take on what's been happening in DC, which we'll get into as well. But yeah, this is our first time being back together in the past 2 weeks, and it feels like a new edition, a new volume, a new volume.
Since we last convened, I took a little trip to Iceland. That was pretty fun, and Abby went back to Vegas for a little bit. So we've each kind of refreshed, and we're ready to come back and dissect the kind of takeover that's happening in DC. But unless anything else, I think first we wanted to kind of talk about this breaking news story from today out of Minneapolis. There was a shooting at a school, a Catholic school, Ascension, is what it's called, and they were having their morning mass essentially, one of the first days back to school, and a gunman who allegedly was related to his mom worked at this school, went and yeah, shot up this mass and injured around 20 last I heard and killed I believe two students. So I wanted to bring that up. Even though we're not going to spend too much time on it, you can probably find more information from other outlets. But yeah, this is kind of a recurring topic that comes up from time to time. These shootings across the country, particularly, there's been a couple targeted at schools and Catholic schools in particular. Like there was one in 2023 at a Tennessee Catholic school. So I don't know if you had some thoughts on it, or reactions.
In for this story in particular, I got a couple texts about it today, actually, from a few friends and from Colin, and it was kind of just the same thing of being like, "Did you hear about this shooting that happened?" The text that you had sent me was like, "Oh, I feel like this is the biggest, most tragic news that's happened since the flooding that happened in Texas a couple months ago or a month ago." And I'd have to agree with that. Anything that has to do with gun violence and like, school shootings, especially since our age range, I feel like had to go through things like active school shooting drills and anything like that. Hearing it happen time and time again is just so sad. Like, I don't think there's a way to get desensitized from things like that.
Yeah, it's certainly like one of the more deranged things that I think a human being can do, and it's very unthinkable, but a lot of times people will kind of speculate in the aftermath about motive, and at least to me, based off of the evidence that's out there right now, it definitely seems like it was a targeted attack. There was allegedly the shooter had posted or had scheduled a post to YouTube kind of showcasing the preparation and planning that went into this attack. And like I said, it seems like it was orchestrated because the shooter's mom had some connection, and the shooter might have grown up attending this school for all that we know. I don't think that's an unreasonable speculation. And so again, I just think it's such a depraved thing for someone to carry out, and especially to be like stewing and planning for like who knows how long to do. It's very unthinkable. Um, yeah, I don't know. I can't really wrap my head around it. And as far as like the pattern of shootings, I just think that there's such a missed opportunity. Like the Democrats right now are trying to kind of restructure like what is their party platform going to be
Hmm.
in the aftermath of like losing to Trump again. And I just think there's a lot on the table with like, hey, some comprehensive reform either in the gun lane or the mental health lane or both at the same time would go a long way and resonate with a lot of people, I think.
I agree with that. Gun violence in schools is something that both sides agree with in protecting their children. I feel like that's a very general basis of something that could pull in voters from both sides and less about hating the other side and more about, hey, this is what Democrats care about.
Yeah, and I think this idea of like the zero sum thinking that kind of happens in the aftermath of these things, where it's like either we must take all the guns or like I don't, like institutionalize all the people who we who have issues or whatnot. Like I don't know, just why not have a comprehensive approach where we kind of reckon with the underlying I think mental health and social issues that allow pe these people to fall through the cracks, become ostracized, and then enact their resentments through violence. Like, I think the conversation can be so much more nuanced than it has been in the past when it either immediately turns to like ban all guns or like keep all guns. There's got to be some
Yeah,
other third lane that I don't know why it's taken us like 20 plus years. I mean, Columbine was in 99. So like literally over 25 years where this has been a very prevalent recurring issue and I don't know why there hasn't been more progress.
I agree with that. It kind of reminds me a little bit. Every time I see a shooting, it reminds me of the shooting in Vegas, which was at a country music festival. And I think about how much things like that affect your community and still change within that community doesn't happen. In Nevada, a lot of people care about gun rights. Like that's something that is very a right-winged ideology that Nevada has, even though there is a 50-50 like split on ideological views and topics and politics there. But that is something that I wanted to change in reforming somehow. That doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be a zero-sum issue.
And I think we don't want to dwell on this issue too much, but I think from my personal experience, I grew up like having guns as kind of a common fixture of like my family. My mom grew up in like the rural Indiana region, and so like guns in her family were just kind of commonplace. So like I adopted that as sort of the natural understanding of how the world works. And there, like if you're living in rural Indiana, like sure, it might make sense to have some guns. But I remember what really like flipped the switch for me was not the Sandy Hook shooting. I was probably too young, though I do remember that happening and there being a lot of discussion about it. But it was the Uvalde shooting when we were in college that really made me kind of question like why. I know we have this kind of cultural, long-standing attachment to guns, and that's in the Constitution, and there's reasons for that. But is there really like no possible reform that we could try, even like try different local things and just see what emerges out of it. It seems like not much has emerged of good use, and the Uvalde shooting was especially kind of my turning point on the prevalence of guns in our society, where I just think like it demands that we do something like in terms of legislation, I think.
Yeah, I hope that some change happens from this, and I'm really thinking about the families of those affected and loved ones.
Speaking of different community consequences of policy and how it kind of ripples out, has this effect on society and crime and violence, I think that also is relevant to what's happening in DC. I did do that episode a couple weeks ago for the first week of the National Guard being deployed in DC, but now we're on going into week 3. Um, what's your experience been of it? Because you haven't really spoken on it yet.
My experience of it is I haven't been to the mall or like anywhere where the National Guard is posted up like since it's been sent here. I've seen a couple of videos of it on social media. There was a protest outside of my apartment. I didn't even hear that either, but I read it about the news the next day, and it was literally like on the cross sections of where I lived, and I was like, how did I not hear that? But my apartment like faces inwards and not towards the street, so I guess that was why. But then I was out of town for a week and a half, and now I'm back. But I do think that there's this underlying like context of that the guard is here and that DC is being quote like overtaken by Trump right now. And then there's also that most people here do not give an F about it and they're like going about their day, they're doing whatever and they are just like Trump will be Trump. Like there's so like DC is like 97% left voting.
Mhm.
Like people don't respect that man here. The voters for him are not here, and they're not treating him very legitimately in that, in respecting his choices right now. You're not just gonna not go to work or not do things because Trump's like taking over your
Having a
city.
temper tantrum.
Yeah, exactly that. Like he's literally having a temper tantrum, and you know what you do when kids have temper tantrums? You don't give them attention, and then
It's true.
eventually they stop or move on to, God forbid, move on to a different city. Like apparently he wants to. Um, but
So that was interesting. We've talked off camera a little bit about how um, we we don't want to give too much credence to what he's doing by even like talking about it on the show, and we don't want to give him the rise and the reaction that I think he is trying to evoke from liberals, where he wants liberals to be in this impossible position where now they're the ones defending crime
crime.
and criminals, and no one is defending that at all. It's more about the principle that I think a lot of people take issue with when it comes to like the use of military and civilians.
What is the guard even
But
doing besides like you? Okay, you've been to the mall since and you've seen it, right?
yeah, so they're standing around in little pockets, and those little pockets have grown to bigger pockets ever since the Republican
Flying.
the Republican states sent more. So like the initial deployment was like a couple hundred, I believe, National Guard. Then the other states, Republican states predominantly, like Mississippi, Ohio, South Carolina, they were all sending their own National Guard also. So the pockets have expanded, but they're still mostly congregated in these very visible public spaces like the mall. I feel like we only have been saying the mall like over and over again.
Where else are they?
I
I've
I don't know. I don't know at all.
like they're not on 14th Street.
No, they're
Like
not. There has been a lot more police presence.
I
I've
agree.
noticed that.
Yeah,
Like you see,
especially in like the POC heavy neighborhoods, like in Columbia Heights. Like I see, I mean, police are everywhere in a city anyways,
right.
but I don't know if it's placebo effect, but maybe it's because I'm noticing it more. Like I've always thought to myself like this is my first time really living in a city. Like before this, I lived in San Diego and I lived in Vegas, but that's all suburbia. And so I'd consider this being my first time living in an American city. And even when I first got here, I thought to myself, oh yeah, there's like more crime here because it's a city, not because it's DC. And there's more police action here, more sirens, like everything like that. And maybe I'm just noticing it more, or maybe there is an increase in police, which probably is correct. Probably it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you're talking about. I do think we're primed right now to notice the police presence
Hmm.
because of what's happening in the news. However, I've been here about a year, going on a year, and the presence is definitely amped up in terms of the cars you see patrolling the street. Again, the National Guard, not really. They're only on the mall. But
They're just
but
chilling at the mall.
to your point earlier about DC being very desensitized to a heavy security presence, that is just part of DC. Like
Yeah.
I think that's not a surprise. They're very used to like shutting down the street so that a convoy can like go down, and you just get used
Military
to
parade.
yeah and desensitized. So I don't think much of DC is really that like phased by this. We might actually be a little bit more phased than other residents here because we're a little bit
Transplant.
newer, yeah, transplants to the city. But I think if Trump tries this in other cities like Chicago and Baltimore, he's not going to have as easy of a time
I agree
because
with that.
those residents are not as accustomed to a heavy federal influence and might actually be pretty agitated by it.
I can so imagine there being like way more protests and way more demonstrations when it comes to Trump going to other places. I actually did have a question for you. Have you gotten texts or messages or calls about what's been going on from DC in DC from
Yeah.
people outside of DC?
Yeah, I know someone in Chicago who was texting me being like, "Oh, they're coming here next," and I was like, "Sorry,
They're not.
I hope not," but like so Brandon Johnson is the mayor of Chicago and
Hmm.
Pritzker is the governor of Illinois, and they're both not, they both signaled that they're not open to a federal incursion into their jurisdiction.
Right.
And so how that would play out politically, probably like lawsuits, like the usual means, but I don't know, there's no basis for the federal government to deploy to a city without a like obvious emergency. And so how Trump would spin it to justify going into other cities would, I don't know how he would do it, but yeah, like it would be a hard sell and I don't think it would go over well and it would probably go over less well than it has in DC even.
Way less. A year ago, me would be like, there's no way he would actually do that, like go to these random cities. But everything's up in the air when it comes to Trump. I also got some messages from people being like, how is DC? Even today, one of my friends texted me and asked, and it's just so silly because another layer of it is, I think, the way that the media is covering it and the way that the media has portrayed, right-wing media too, especially, has portrayed like crime rates and Trump's takeover of DC, and people are getting DC from a very narrowed perspective versus to me, at least in my day-to-day life, and I feel like a lot of different people who work and live here, it's not really impacting them in a way that maybe the media is portraying that it is.
Yeah, I think the immediate impact that it's having on citizens, civilians in DC is not nearly as bad as maybe it's being portrayed, but I think the kind of subtle messaging and the psychological impact of it
Yeah.
probably is more profound than we can really articulate or understand right now at this moment. I mean, I'm very worried about it creating a long-standing animosity between the police and citizens here, even like well beyond Trump's term, well beyond like who knows. I think just having this negative connotation around the police as the people who um are being ordered to like I don't know, keep the order but not really like helping necessarily, just like standing around and they've even recently started doing like yard work. Have you seen that? There's weird
No.
like stories in the Washington Post about now the National Guard is like out on the mall doing lawn care and stuff. It sounds like made up, but I swear to God, it's not like painting a image I think of a police force that's really like competent and there to help you, but rather more one that is being sent from the top down to dot dot dot, like not really have a role at all. So
Trump really has this pattern of taking one issue that the left can defend, like you said earlier, in this case being crime, and blowing it up into proportion and making it this huge, huge thing and moving on to the next. Like he has the attention span of a toddler, and the more attention you give him, the more he'll play into it. But once he realizes that this won't get attention for much longer because there's other things going on, he's going to give it up.
that's
And
a really good point. Yeah.
exactly why he brings up things like switching precedent on burning the American flag.
Right. We also wanted to talk about that because Trump issued an executive order, I think on Monday,
Yeah.
saying that you And you can be what prosecuted if you burn an American flag, or that
Yeah.
it's now a criminal act under certain conditions.
Yeah, so the precedent is from a case from the late 80s. It is Texas v. Johnson, and Johnson was disagreeing with some policies in Reagan's terms regarding like big corporations, and so he burned a flag outside of a courthouse or something like that, and the state was trying to sue him for an attack on free speech. There was no speech involved. It was all just action of burning the flag. And it was ruled 5-2 that burning the flag is not a violation. It's not is a not a violation under like free speech or anything like that. It's not fighting words. It was all action. You have the right to burn the flag if you would like to. Even the judges that like don't agree with burning the flag were saying, well, it's America, like you're allowed to do that. You could have persecuted Johnson for something like arson before you persecuted him for burning the flag. And basically, that's the precedent that Trump is trying to overturn. And I think that a lot of conservatives even disagree with this in regard to the fact that this country is not meant to police things like this.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that people have been mentioning Antonin Scalia a lot, who was, like
Yeah,
a very prominent Supreme Court justice, definitely in the early 2000s. He was there, and basically, he was a very conservative justice, but at the same time was in defense of someone's right to burn the flag if they chose. I think that there's a quote from Scalia that's like, "If I was the king, then I would say that you can't burn the flag, but I'm not a king, and this is America, and it's an act of expression, therefore you can." And I mean, that's pretty relevant to what's going on right now. We've been seeing this escalation in Trump trying to accumulate more and more power to the executive and kind of act in a unilateral way that is more like a monarch than a president. And it flies in the face of some of the most conservative voices we've ever had in this country. And I I think it's deliberate. It's like trying to again make the left take the side of flag burners
like if he
so
says
that he
stuff
can,
like it is so deliberate, like, and we were talking about it off camera, but I think that the left falls for it like time and time again, just
yeah,
like how sometimes the mainstream media falls into feeding into Trump, even though that's something that we're doing like literally right
it's a
now.
trap.
It's such a trap. It's like a negative feedback loop. Like you just get into it because you kind of have to. It's like a necessary evil to report on Trump. And like when it comes to the left feeding into it, Trump saying that he wants to make an executive order on burning flags, not being allowed, the left's gonna go out there and burn a million of them. Like
Right.
I
And then you can point to it as like more reason why he was right all along. And my worry is talking about the police presence. It's kind of the same thing. I worry that he's trying to evoke bad behavior out of people so that he can point to it as further proof that like he's deserves all the power he's accumulated unto himself. So like if he sends out deploys to other cities, let's say like Chicago, and then people push back because they don't like that he doesn't have the jurisdiction there in the same way that he does in DC, and people are agitated and have like little uprisings, then he can cite that as like further proof of like we needed this because look how
look how bad it is here.
exactly. So everyone listening, don't fall for that shit, please, for the love of God. Like we have to
We have to like
take
all unite
yes.
and take a class in some media literacy manipulation 101. Um,
Like what if we all oh my God, I
what
said the message again. What if we all just ignored Donald Trump for the rest of his presidency? Like literally
can you
just
imagine?
pretend like we collectively as like a coalition agreed we're never gonna like think about, talk about, mention him ever again. But we'd have to like organize this. Because you couldn't just like we couldn't just stop talking about him on our show. We would
It
have
needs to
to
come from
grassroots.
yeah.
Like a grassroots
First,
ignore Donald Trump.
first the Washington Post, the New York Times, um, whatever other big news outlets, they need to stop. Then he's gonna be like, then even like Fox and CNN, like they need to stop, and then all of us can be at peace again.
Well, I mean, the reason the corporate media won't do it is because they get massive
Money,
profit off
yeah.
of reporting on him, and It's like the whole system, like it
So what if
works in
every
conjunction.
single person, regular people who aren't the media, decide not to care anymore?
I just think that could be like the next, like you had No King's Day, and that was pretty good
Yeah.
branding, pretty good marketing as far as like pushback and resistance goes. It was effective, I think. The idea of like no kings. But what if we had like a ignore Donald Trump or like that was the resistance of not feeding into, not giving him attention. I don't know how you would spin it or brand it, but it might be the
We're
only
starting it
thing.
right
It
here.
might be the only thing that actually like works for him in the way that he's particularly good at using people's attention against them.
Yeah. He's an attention monster. Like, if you take it away, he's gonna shrink up a little bit. He's gonna be
What is
begging for
you
something
said
back.
earlier?
Oh yeah, it's like if you give a mouse a cookie, like, he's just gonna keep wanting more. Like
Literally.
I, it's hard because also for us, like we're working with our podcast, the media, and I would like Washed Up to go somewhere, and I do love like analyzing the news, and I do love saying our opinions and stuff. And I wonder what the news cycle would be if Kamala was president right now. Do you ever think about that? Like you're like, I
Yeah.
wonder what it would be like to live in DC right now if Kamala
I
had been
was just
president.
thinking that today. Like literally, I was running
Like
around
how
the mall
different would it
thinking that.
be? I was thinking about it yesterday.
It would be, I think, more boring. I don't know. It's such a weird alternate
Boring's the
reality.
wrong word though. It would be surely there would definitely be things happening because it's still the US, but I think there would be a lot less bullshit to report on. Like I know Kamala wouldn't be making an EO about the burning flag. I don't think
The
that there would
reason,
be a DC takeover at
well,
all.
yeah, that goes without saying, I don't
Yeah,
think. But there wouldn't. The problem is she was never really able to articulate like a full-blown policy plan. She couldn't
right.
like put it forth, and so
She focused too much on the Trump hatred than it was the
yeah.
Democrats uniting in the actual policy of it.
So I
I
think that's
don't.
why I'm having a hard time like imagining what her presidency would be. Although she is going on a book tour for her new book, 107 Days, where she wrote about, it's like a memoir. She wrote about her rushed campaign and like how it, her
Are you
insider
gonna
take
read
on it.
it?
Maybe.
Is she gonna come here?
Yeah, she's coming,
Wait,
I think, in October.
should we read it and then try to go?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I think she's
You're
coming in
gonna hear
October
first,
to,
guys.
um, so that could be interesting. But that's why to me like the counterfactual where Kamala became president doesn't have like much weight to me because
Hmm.
I at the end of
Well,
the
she's no
day
different.
and at the end of the day it wasn't really that likely if like looking back on it, but I was literally wondering that today, so it's interesting you bring that up.
Yeah, I was talking about it with a friend yesterday, and I'm like, well, there's no use pondering on it because there are no glory in what ifs.
Yeah. Um so I kind of wanted to circle back really quick to kind of wrap up our DC takeover of the police and National Guard thing, because the DC Mayor Muriel Bowser did a press conference earlier today where
Hmm.
she did kind of talk about how, yes, crime has come down in the 3 or so weeks since the deployment started. Particularly like carjackings, violent crime was down compared to a year ago this time. So like that's great. And again, like we have never taken issue with crime coming down. We think that's good. And there probably are like extenuating circumstances where you do have to take extra measures to facilitate bringing crime down. We've just always taken the stance of like we should probably address these concerns at the most local level possible. So like if
Yeah.
we have an elected DC government, which we do, and maybe they're bungling things really badly, but like at least we voted for that and that's our own fault and our own problem. But to have someone like from the outside step in and assert themselves where perhaps no one is asking for that.
Hmm.
That's really like what I'm reactive about and reacting to when I am critical of Donald Trump and his methods. Even though I can fully acknowledge like the crime rate has come down. Although I have to say, anecdotally, I've seen way more people out on the street than I ever have since moving here. Like people who seem like they might be homeless, who are sleeping on benches at the mall, etc. I've actually seen more of it. I've had more like personal interactions with people like out on the street than ever. So I'm not really sure, even though there's been over 1,500 arrests supposedly, and a heavy percentage of that is immigration related. I haven't actually seen on the street like safer, nicer, friendlier conditions.
Me neither. I also think when it comes to the arrests, there's so much happening within the system right now that isn't that causes issues for crime in general, that could also be traced back to Trump. Like I visited the Superior Courts a few times this summer as per my job, and I was actually talking with some judges, and they were talking to me about how like overworked they're being right now, not because there's an increase of crime, but because there's a decrease in the appointments of judges.
Hmm.
Because how it works in DC, it works differently in different places when it comes to Superior Court and the judges there. How this judge had explained it to me was that in DC, judges are appointed by the sitting president. She was appointed by Obama, like way back when. Um, Not way back. That was like so dramatic. She's one about Obama, and she was talking about how Trump has yet to appoint any judges right now. So because of that, where there would
Huh.
usually be 80 judges, there's actually around 50. And because of that, all these cases are being stacked on stacked on stacked on all these judges. They can't get through it. They can't keep holding people in holding cells. So they just go out
Wow.
and keep committing more crimes. Or like there's not really this like there's not really room for reform when it comes to crime and stuff. And the reason why they're not being appointed more judges is because in DC, people who live here are either like really left or they're moderate, but they're Republican, but they're not Trump Republican. And Trump is an ideological president and he's not finding these judges that he wants to appoint to Superior Court. And because of that,
Wow.
there's so much happening. And I just don't understand that in how why are we not looking at this? Like it's in
Yeah.
the local news too about
Okay. I was
the
gonna say
judges.
you're like breaking news about the
No,
justice system right
it's
now.
not new. Like we brought this up to this judge because it's like in the news in local things. It's just like people on a national level seem to not care about this stuff. And like talking to these judges and like the people who work in the courts is like so fun. Because it feels like an inside scoop, but really it's not. Like it's online, it's in the news. Um, you can trace that back to Trump. This conversation was maybe like a month ago. But I doubt much has changed in the last month.
Wow, that's interesting. I had no idea. And like, as someone who I feel like watches the Washington news pretty close, like Washington Post especially, they may or may not have written about it, but I don't recall reading it there. So I'm thank you for sharing that because I feel like you're like breaking that news right now.
To you.
Or yeah, like
This
to
isn't
our
this
audience.
isn't me like I'm not sneakily being like, oh, this judge told me this. No, I like it is a general concern of some people and lawyers and judges.
Huh. Okay, interesting. So, okay, we'll have to follow that and see if he appoints anymore or like where we go from here. Because I don't know, it feels like there's a lot that's broken with the system right now, and the military thing just feels like a temporary fix. He can extend it, past the 30-day point or have Congress extend it, whatever. But these all seem like very temporary solutions to underlying problems, both within the justice system and within like culture writ large, like with again mental health and addiction, and why are these people on the streets in the first place? Um, the military is not going to solve those types of issues. We have to investigate, like Abby has done by talking to a judge.
Is there anything else you want to say about these topics? Trump?
No, I was gonna ask you anything else from like I know you've been to a couple of DC prisons and maybe not all of that is super germane to like this conversation, but do you have anything that stands out from those experiences?
Those experiences were very interesting to say the least. But honestly, the marshals that we got to talk to would talk about how people, especially people who commit crimes who are returners, would talk about how honestly they would try to build friendships with these people and hope that they don't return to the spots that they were in. And I think it's really important to remember how human people are. Even like, again, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I like crime because I don't. Like, I don't think anyone does. And if you do, you're a freak. Um, I just think that there could be more done with reform, and that doesn't mean completely zero sum again. Like, I feel like there's so many things where people are like, oh, if you're a leftist, if you believe this, like you are saying to completely get rid of the police and live happy-go-lucky. Like, I don't believe that either. Like, I think that there is a happy medium of having prison reform, crime reform, starting from, in DC in general, there's a lot of teenage crime. And I think
Mhm.
that there needs to be reform in the education system then. And I think that things can be preventative without getting rid of the police completely. Like
Yeah.
I don't think that the criminal system needs to completely go away because there should be people to punish for your crimes. I just think that by doing preventative things there would be less.
Definitely. And to your point about the teenage crime, I don't know why that does seem like a DC thing. Maybe, again, it has to do with like the social structures that are in place. Maybe they don't like catch these people if they fall off the wagon, and we could have better systems in place. People will often like conservatives will cite like the breakdown of the nuclear family, and like if they just all had two parental figures, it would work out. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe better school systems again, like you just said. Maybe better like screening for certain mental health conditions or like deviancy of some kind could catch people early and like get them on a better path. Um, I don't know. Yeah, just thinking of like more broad systemic and then criminal justice reform to help with repeat offenders.
Hmm. Like, I'm a big fan of criminal reform. I was listening to oh my gosh. I was listening to Megan Kelly's podcast today, and in her episode, she was kind of making fun of people who believe in prison reform and being like gun ho, like,
Restorative justice
yeah.
circles.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. She was kind of saying like, yeah, all these like hippies want to get rid of the police and stuff like that, and they think it's all going to be solved with education. But I'm like, I don't think that the police need to be getting gotten rid of. I actually think that we do need people to police laws, but it doesn't need to be how it is right now.
I think the left got really out of control in 2020 where they were reacting and saying like, all cops are bad or another word that's less nice. They were really driving that narrative in reaction to a lot of what was happening culturally at that time between the lockdowns and Black Lives Matter. And so people were like taking those issues and drawing it to its like most extreme uh, outcome of like, yeah, let's just get rid of the police altogether. And there were voices prominently on the left calling for that. And I agree, it was very misguided because now the left is kind of like branded as the anti-cop, anti-justice, I don't know, like order party or faction. And that's not a good image that the left should want. Yeah, we need order in society, but I think what you said earlier, we should start the happy medium party where like
You and I, the
yes,
happy medium party, one of the rules, ignore Trump.
yeah. The happy medium party invites you to ignore Trump Day. But I think like something like that where you're not falling into what the right is trying to paint leftists as, but you are being reasonable about these issues in a way where you can have the best of both worlds and not just like the zero sum dichotomy that people get trapped in. And it limits us in so many ways from actually making things better. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Me too.
Okay, so I think that covers what we wanted to talk about with the shooting that happened earlier today, the DC takeover, the flag burning EO, which probably will be struck down
Yeah, I
by the
can't see
courts.
that at all passing through the courts.
No,
Like,
because they've already ruled on this, and even the most conservatives agree.
yeah, like Justice Scalia.
So that'll probably be struck down. But the other topic of interest lately is Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. So how did you find out? What was your reaction?
My roommate actually texted me and said Taylor Swift engaged. And then I got another text from who did I get a text? Oh, from my childhood friend, and she said Taylor engagement question mark. And I was like, "Oh God, I gotta go look on Instagram now." And I saw their engagement photos, the there's something so cringy to me about when couples do like collab posts. I don't know why it's so cringe. I'm like when I get engaged, I'm not collabing with you. Like, I don't know why it's just so cringy to like see that. But I'm happy for her, I guess. Yeah. I mean, in a weird, not in a non-parasocial way.
I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was nice. The caption that I think she
What was the
put on it, it
caption?
was something like your English teacher and
Oh, yeah.
high school gym teacher got engaged or something like
That
this.
was cutesy, kind of cringe, but
It was very millennial,
so millennial.
but like I'm willing to give them the grace as like this is like their special thing. And to your point about like yeah, posting on social media, I do think like certain things should just be more like private, enjoyed in the moment between the two people and not make it into like a whole spectacle. But as far as PR and spectacles go, this was not really one. It was very
I didn't think it
ordinary.
was a PR thing at
Yeah,
all.
I thought it was sweet. And
Even the photos.
yeah.
Wait, sorry, what were you gonna
No,
say?
no, that was it. I was just I it looked like they put a lot of thought into it, but like in the same way that like regular people put thought into a proposal because it is like a big deal. And um as far as like culturally what it means and symbolizes, I don't know. Maybe more people in our generation who are like very resistant to the idea of marriage will like take a second look at it and be like, hmm, like,
Ooh,
if she
Taylor
can
and
do it,
Travis got married.
and that's kind of like dumb and superficial, but I'm for it. Like I'm happy for her that she's getting married
I'm happy
after,
for both of them.
yeah, they seem
Love
like they
both of
enjoy
them.
each other and have fun and she's had like a series of relationships which she kind of like writes a lot of her music about, but some of her more recent stuff that is less focused on like breakups per se and more on like her own evolution as an artist and her like happiness in relationships or different like everyday struggles. I find that that's type of music is very compelling also, and maybe this will inform her artistry in that way. We should just make more of that as opposed to like breakup stuff.
Yeah, I'm really happy for both of them. Anything engagement, wedding related, like always makes me like really happy for whoever. Even if it's people, like when I see people from high school getting engaged or like people from my childhood or whatever, I barely even know them anymore. I'm like, wow, I'm so happy for you. Like it makes me so happy for them. I think the photos were, like you said, it felt so normal. Um, I think I saw this TikTok and it was like, why didn't she tag the photographer? And then people were saying it's because it was probably a family member who took it. Like, I don't think that they hired a photographer because they didn't want it to leak or anything like that. And I so could see that. Like, they're very normal
Yeah.
photos. He like built this garden for her in their backyard or something like that is what I read. Um, and it's so pretty. It was really pretty. It seemed like something that she would enjoy based off of her lyricism. Trying not to be very parasocial here because I don't really like that. Um, but after all the times that she's talked about like marriage and fairy tales and she definitely is somebody who's wanted to get married. Like this is definitely something she wanted based off of her songs and things that she said in the past. So glad for her. I think another lesson that could be picked up from this is to focus on your career and successes, and everything else will fall into place, I guess. I mean, I'm not Taylor Swift, but
So yeah, I mean, it definitely has been making me think about just like engagement in general, proposing and all of this. And like people were, first of all, people were like nitpicking a little bit about like did he go down on the wrong knee and like this and that. I
is
just
the
think
wrong knee?
apparently the left knee is the right one,
Oh,
but and maybe he wasn't on the left, I don't know. But like I don't know. I try to like the nitpicky stuff doesn't really matter at the end of the day, like who cares? But other people were commenting about like what not to do for an engagement. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like for instance, don't do like the whole jumbotron proposal thing. And it made me wonder like what are your own preferences around that or have you thought about that? And is there anything that's like a complete deal breaker where you're like never? Or would you, or if you were in that situation, let me put it a different way. Would you like first be like yes, but
and
then
then privately say no.
yeah.
Yeah, I would do that. If it was a very I I've talked about this with some friends before, and I would hope that whoever proposes to me knows me well enough not to propose to me on a jumbotron or very
Like
publicly.
Coldplay.
Like, please do not. Like, if me and somebody was in love and they were proposing to me, that they would know me well enough that I would not want a very public thing. Like, I would imagine my proposal being very, like, intimate and private and probably something special to like me or us or whatever. Like I could not imagine getting married or I can imagine getting married in front of people. I can't imagine being proposed to in front of even like one person. Like I think I would imagine I would want it to be very, very private and special and like not even like really photographers or any like we could have a photo shoot a different day. Like I just like want it to only live in our memory, if that makes sense.
That's a really good point. And also, yeah, like the thing about having photographers and even like at weddings, I don't really like I get it. I get it. You want to remember it and you want to like commemorate it and like have something to show for the day and like I get that. But also like even at weddings I found that sometimes the photos can really like draw out and just kind of take away from the actual like being in the experience of it. So I don't know, like I haven't particularly thought about engagements per se, but like something I think where it's not being detracted by all of the wanting to capture it and like have it just right and do everything perfectly, but where it's actually like something very, yeah, like you said, intimate, private, and exemplary of like the relationship itself.
Yeah, I think that that is my choice. But I don't ever want to down anyone who has been engaged a different way or married a different way because to each their own. I love love. I just went to a wedding
Oh yeah, you should
for
talk about
yeah,
that.
okay, wait. This is so cringe. I Colin, I didn't even tell you this story. So I went to a wedding and it's Catholic and Filipino, so there's like different traditions that are in a Catholic Filipino wedding. I am my uncle's oldest niece, my sister being the youngest niece because it's just us and my brother. And I was chosen to do the first reading, and I was supposed to read the love is patient, love is kind, first letter, Corinthians. This is so cringy. I got up there to do the reading and I opened the little booklet that's like bookmarked. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, where's my reading? So I'm like, and before the wedding too, I wasn't at the rehearsal because it was like early in the week and it was in the Bay Area and I was visiting Vegas and I was like, so I get up there, I'm like flipping through the pages, I'm like, where the fuck is my reading? I start to panic and I'm like looking up, I'm looking at my auntie and uncle who are like kneeling. My dad was the best man, and he was like, I could see he starts laughing, and I'm like flipping through these pages, like all like five of them. It's like in this like little binder. None of it was my reading, and so I just like look into the mic and I'm like, where is it? Like, I literally and this is what's cringy is I know it was being recorded. It's being recorded. So because of the videographer, the camera people, like
Like
whatever.
send the video right here.
Oh my God. And the worst part, and then a coordinator, somebody who was in charge of it, came up to me and she was like, it's right here. And I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. So I read the fucking gospel. Like,
Oh,
it was so cringe. I like was like, I know this isn't my reading. So I'm like reading it. I'm reading the gospel and I get back down and like the people, I was in the front pew. My grandparents are right next to me. They're like, why did you do that? I was like, she told me to read it. And then the people behind me were like, good job. Like they were kind of snickering. My auntie and uncle were laughing in the front and like my dad was kind of making fun of me too. And like the rest of the night, and then obviously when the priest went up, he read the same damn thing as me. So they didn't even get their first reading. Yeah, it
you read
was
the gospel. That's
so
oh my God.
embarrassing. It was so
So
embarrassing.
the priest should have just like ad-libbed it and done the other reading that you were supposed to do, or you. I don't know.
It was
That's
so embarrassing that my sister did the intentions. She got up there and the intentions were up there too. But what we figured out is the priest had what we were supposed to read in his binder,
oh
which
yeah.
was why he was confused. And we had the priest's binder. So by the time my sister got up there and she was acting all confused too, they walked hers over to her.
Hmm.
And I was like, why did they do that to me? Like, why did this woman tell me to read the gospel? I literally whispered to her, like the mic at the pew was literally like right there, and I was like, "Are you sure?" Like everyone, there was like 180 people at this wedding. It's so embarrassing. Anyways, that was my little anecdote about weddings, and
Oh,
videographer being forever capturing such a cringe moment. The rest of the night too, at the reception, everyone was like making a little comment to me, either saying you did your best, you asked her if she was sure, like because they knew I was confused. Um, and other people were kind of teasing me, but
okay. Well, if it makes you feel better, I did the same thing at my grandma's funeral. We're like, yeah, they give you the book and it has like the entire day's readings in it. Like the I don't know, they do the gospel reading, then they have like an Old Testament reading or like a letter from Paul, blah 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 blah. And then, yeah, I think I read the wrong one and then same thing at my grandma's funeral. So it's like it's deliberately confusing and I don't blame you and sounds like the priest messed up by having the
yeah,
wrong
he
book.
was pretty confused. But to say to sum up this story,
It would
my
have been
auntie and uncle were like not upset at me or anything, and I just thought it was so silly and cute at the end of the day because I don't think there's such a thing as a perfect wedding. And I think that little mistakes and like little like the show must go on mentality like is so like essential to have. Like it shouldn't like let you ruin your day. Like I just think about like when my wedding happens, like I love love. So like I'm like very excited for when that time comes around and when all my friends get married and stuff like that, if they want that.
yeah, it definitely is like okay, it's calling to mind this thing that happened at my parents' wedding, which I don't
Were you there?
was I there at my parents' wedding? No.
It's like how
But
do you
I
have
know
some
from like
stories?
stories, yeah, because like you have to like just go with it, like you said, the mentality of like whatever happens happens, don't dwell on it, don't like worry about how it's gonna be remembered. So my mom, her grandpa had died earlier that year, and he was dating another woman at the time, who then started dating another guy, who she brought to my mom's wedding. So they're like very far removed, like no real direct relationship. It was more of like, oh, you're invited because like you were dating my grandpa, and we're like close but not family. And her boyfriend, who she had like recently started dating, got up before my parents like did like the first dance. And he did a dance. He was wearing like silver dancing shoes. He got up and started dancing to Boogeyman, like
Woogie
Boogeyman,
woogie woogie.
Boogeyman,
Oh,
do
look.
what you want. And it's like the video of their wedding, like but before like the first dance, like the couple, this guy who they barely know doing like a solo dance to the entire song. Like he's just up there by himself.
Why did no one get him out of there? I would have been like, dude, get out.
I have no idea. But like that's just how it goes and you just gotta go with it. And personally, I've been thinking I wouldn't mind eloping because just like all of the hassle and all of like it's just so much. But if you are gonna do a wedding, which I mean now I'm sure Taylor and Travis's wedding is gonna be a big
Big.
spectacle, but
Yeah. There's our little wedding stories. I can't believe that happened. But I think it's important to do things how you and your partner would want it done. Like I don't think another thing that I think Taylor and Travis's engagement brought up was a lot of people were bringing up how her diamond is going to be trending now and like all this stuff and like I mean it's a ring, a really big somebody said it looked like a championship ring. Um, but I don't think that people need to like follow trends or do things just because it's like in the limelight. I personally will not be eloping because I want my entire big family at my wedding. But I think it's really important to do what you want and not judge other people for it.
Yep. That's all I got for today.
Me as well.
It feels like a sudden ending, but I guess that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep. Washed up out.
Just about.